Hello and welcome to the Telegraph studio and Business Reporter's digital transformation campaign, hosted by the Telegraph Online. I'm Alistair Greener. All businesses want to have a personalised customer relationship. All of them want to give a seamless experience. But sometimes it means millions of individual profiles, tens of millions of customer journeys, and hundreds of millions of purchases. So how can an organisation deal with this challenge? Well, that's what we're talking about today with Richard Lack from Gigia. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we want this personalised relationship, we want it to be a seamless experience, but that's quite a Herculean task. So how do we cope with this?
I think it is a Herculean task. The Herculean effort has really been spent on the later stages of the customer journey. For instance, offering the right products based on data that's held about me, which is the right thing to do and certainly drives value from customers. What it ignores is that a lot of the data that's held on customers is guesswork. And the only way you can really get accurate first-party data is by going back to the very early stages of the relationship. And in any relationship, there's a point where you just say hello and you're asked to introduce yourself. And we think that brands could do a much better job of handling that very precious moment. We know that first impressions count, and that's where trust is built and where a customer will decide whether this is going to be a pleasant journey or not.
You talked there about the early stages. What exactly do you mean by that?
So we're really talking about registration. And the fact is that though many things about the internet have changed over the last 2 decades and got much, much better, registration is still as broken as it always has been. And there are really a couple of things going on that have just made it more broken recently. So the first is that since 2008, when only 2.5% of time was spent accessing the internet on mobile devices, now 54% of time is spent accessing the internet using your phone or your tablet. We've also, in that same time frame, seen the rise of social networks and the convenience they offer by registering socially. So registration needs to do a much better job, and the fact remains that most registration forms are just very, very frustrating. They ask questions that should already be apparent. They ask too many questions, they take too long, they're difficult to fill out on a train using a phone. So streamlining needs to happen. A good registration process is very simple, should only be a few clicks. Can I register socially? If I have a Facebook account that already has this data in it, why can't you use that? Why is that not possible? Have you tested the registration on a mobile phone? Is that also easy? These things dramatically increase the rate of registration. For instance, we know about 40% of all registrations are typically social, and that's usually led by Facebook and Google. We also know that the optimal registration process is only a few clicks these days and involves almost no typing of manual data. Streamlining registration is a single thing that will give you access to tens of thousands or millions more consumers and give you more accurate first-party data about them.
A challenge for many organisations is getting this balance right between security, maintaining the highest levels of security, but at the same time the marketing team wanting to get as much information. So how do we deal with that? And also, are the security threats the ones that we're thinking of, such as data and identity theft?
I think it's always been a balance to be struck, and something that the marketing department struggles with. If they had their own way, they would ask for all the data in the world and offer very little, perhaps, with regard to security. What we do know is that end users really care about this stuff. Security is at the top of their agenda. The background to that is that we've seen 10 years of data leaks, breaches, email addresses, credit card details lost. And the average customer really does care about that. It's chief among the concerns. At the same time, the regulatory environment has responded to that. So, for instance, the EU has drafted and will go live with GDPR. GDPR is a very important piece of legislation. What it means is that some of the biggest companies in the world can be fined 4% of global revenues not even for leaking data, but for not having the correct processes in place to safeguard that data against leaks. So we're seeing a few things happen in that area. For instance, national governments are mandating that data about their citizens is held in local data centers. So we've seen this in Russia, we see it in Europe, we're also seeing it in Australia, and we believe that will happen in the rest of Asia as well. Achieving security is suddenly a much more difficult game. It used to be okay to have your data all in one data center. That data center might be cheaply hosted in the US. Now a global CPG provider, for instance, would need to have at least 3 or 4 data centers to hold the data that pertains to each of the nationalities in that database securely and steer clear of fines from governments.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about Gigya now for a moment. Tell us a little bit more about how you fit into all of this, what you actually do, and then if I'm an organisation that comes to you for help, what's the process going to be?
So a little bit about us. We have about 700 customers globally now, and we provide something called customer identity and access management. What that means in simple terms is that we work with our customers to help them do a better job of gathering first-party data about their customers, registering those customers through all channels, all devices, across the whole brand estate, and make that data available in real time to all the systems that need it.
Well, it's certainly an exciting future ahead and lots of things to look forward to. And it's interesting to get that balance between security and marketing. Richard Lack from Gigya, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.